Yes, good question. You should copy the vocab down for sure. We're going to need both of those words to know both of those words for this week for sure. So copy down the focus question, also copy down the green vocab. Thank you. Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. Very nice to hear from you guys. Yes, you're copying down the focus question and the vocab. Um, so first off, in terms of the midterm, I really tried to look at any questions that were not so good for the class. There was like one or two, but not really anything I have to really go over. I think you guys did a I thought you guys did really well on the midterm multiple choice. And, besides some of the essays being like, again, just some people like just don't do historical circumstances. I don't know what I have to do to explain historical circumstances. Just some people just don't do it well. I thought you guys did really well in the midterm. The class average is a little messed up, I would say, because there were some people that didn't take the midterm, so it gets watered down. So I think the class average was like an 89, but that's with some zeros, which is very high for the class. In years past, it's usually around that, but you guys are working with some zeros. I would also say, though, obviously being at home and having your notes and stuff obviously goes a long way. But I was very happy with the grades. I thought the kids that have been working hard all year and have been, staying on top of the work, got 98s, 99s. I think people did really well, so I'm very proud of you guys. So let's just keep it going. We're about halfway through the year at this point. It's counterproductive to really, stop now because we've gotten this far. So now we might as well just continue to the finish line. I will also say that second half of social studies is so much better than the first half. I mean, we learned so much more interesting things. Not that we didn't learn interesting things the first half of the year. I think it's just very clear that this time frame is a lot better. I think you'll like it a lot. There's some topics you'll never forget, and I really do believe there's some really interesting things you're going to learn. Is the Regents going to be canceled this year? No, I don't know. I know the January part was canceled. I'm hoping the June part won't be canceled. Regardless, if it is canceled, that's perfect for you guys because then all you have to do is pass my final and pass my class. And if you pass my class, that means you get a Regents credit for 11th grade without taking the test. Remember, to get the 11th grade credit, you have to pass the test. But if they get rid of the test, they just got to pass the class, and then you get the 11th grade credits. So that's really a win-win situation for you guys, but we need to prepare like the Regents is coming. There's a January Regents, yeah, every year, but they canceled it because of COVID and stuff, so we'll see. Okay? You guys don't take the January Regents. Those are for people that maybe failed the first time around or in an expedited course. Okay? So let's go into, we're back with Unit 4. Specifically, if you look at, let's go into the Google Classroom quick. I'm sure you guys aren't done copying. That's okay. This is a double period Monday. I would say the first period is not exactly the most fun lesson, but this is a notes lesson. So just a notes day today. If you continue with the notes and you copy your notes, all you got to do is take a photo of it. There is a second period lesson, as per usual, that has been posted. There's a YouTube video that's like 10, 15 minutes long and a assignment that you have to do as well. Shouldn't take you more than a half hour. I kept it pretty simple and short for the most part. The January Regents and the June Regents are the same topic, but no, they're completely different tests. Completely different tests. Okay. So today is just a notes day. Our focus is now on the progressive era. We have already kind of looked at industrialization. We've looked at immigration, and now we're going to the progressive era. Okay, which is a pretty long topic in Unit 4. All right, there's a lot of notes specifically in this topic, so I want to be clear about that. So let's get into it. So focus question to at least start is, how did the United States clean up the mess the new cities were making? All right, we have at this point been aware that we have a lot more immigrants coming into the country. And as more immigrants come in, we have a lot more industry and factories being built. And as more factories and industry being built, we have more people moving to cities to be near the factories. All right. So our focus for the next week and a half is on the progressive era. It's a time frame in America based on the idea of government getting more involved and people advancing and improving society. What you're going to notice here is less laissez-faire. You're going to notice less laissez-faire. Okay, and this is because the government's now going to be more involved in cleaning up the problems around the city. Okay, and our goal throughout the progressive era is trying to improve society. It's the same time frame, but we're going to try and expose problems and improve society from this. And the people that do this are known as muckrakers. It's a little bit of a weird word, but since the word's so weird, it's kind of easy to remember. A muckraker is a person who intentionally seeks out a problem, exposes the problem, such as a crime, a criminal act, a problem within the city, or any corruption, and tries to expose that problem, because nothing gets solved unless a problem is exposed. There are many problems out in the world, guys and girls, but the ones that you deal with are the ones that are exposed the most. All right, the two biggest ones over the last 2-3 years you guys have dealt with is probably one is police brutality, right? There's been a lot of exposing of police brutality, which has led to a lot of debates and some laws and some changes. Gun violence, that might be another one that's been a lot bigger. And that is because of muckrakers, people that are going out and trying to fix the problems within the city. Okay? So we have a little bit of a do now we're going to do together. I just want to hold off for a second, but we have a little bit of a do now that we're going to do together. But this term muckraker is a term you're going to see a lot, because we're going to look at a lot of different people over the next couple of days that are muckrakers that expose a certain problem, and that leads to some serious government change. All right, my printer's going off, so it may be a little hard to hear me. What is my wife printing? 7 pages of stuff. Great. All right. So we have these 2 words down. Let's do this do now. We're just going to use the chat. Let's do this. We're going to use the chat to answer this question. So what major problems were going on in the United States during industrialization? So I want you to do this. In the chat, tell me what problems you remember from Unit 4, from industry, from immigration. Also, what problems do you have? You guys live in the Bronx. What are some problems you deal with living in a city that can be a problem also back then? So I'll accept any of the answers. Please just write in the chat any problems that you remember or are aware of living in the city. Or is everything perfect? Maybe everything's perfect. Okay, child labor, good. Pollution. All right, traffic and commuting, good. Overpopulation, noise, good. What else? You guys are all correct. These are all correct. Monopolies were a huge problem. Good. Disease and sickness. Excellent. Crime. All right, you guys are good. You guys are good. Housing. All right, very happy with those. Okay, so you guys have a good sense already living in the city what some of the problems are. It's not like I'm teaching to a group of farming students, you know, what are some problems in cities, and they're not really sure. You guys are 100% correct. All right, so don't write this down, but this is just a preview of some of the problems that we're going to help kind of fix throughout the progressive era. So we've already kind of looked at how unfair work hours, how people were treated at some of their jobs, child labor. We're going to see how that is fixed in the second period today. No, don't copy this down. Okay. New cities had garbage and filth everywhere. This is something we're going to look at today. You guys talked about pollution. Pollution was not as major of a focus as much just garbage and filth in the cities. You will see how filthy cities used to be throughout this time. We talked about monopolies and how the captains of industry had all of the money. Okay, we talked about that. We're going to kind of see how monopolies were fixed at the end of the lesson today. Unsafe working conditions, also going to be talked about throughout the rest of the week. Our politicians were extremely corrupt. Extremely corrupt. We'll talk about how a lot of politicians basically were taking money and bribes and not working for the people. We're going to see how that was fixed. And of course, the cities and homes were overcrowded. No, you do not copy this down, guys. This is just previewing what this this part of the unit's going to be about. Okay, they still are corrupt. Yeah, you can make that argument, Neve. They still are corrupt, but I think you would say by the end of this unit you realize how much more corrupt they used to be back in history because no one held them accountable. So we'll talk about that more on Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, so this is just it's going to be a little bit of a joke, but I think it's funny because I remember my first year teaching this. I remember some students making comments, for the notes they had to take in this part of the unit. And I remember one of my students made some a funny comment, so I wanted to share. So, my reaction when students think they have copied down a lot of notes copied a lot of notes down this year. No, not really. Unit 4 and Unit 5, it seems to get a little bit worse. Just telling you straight out. So if you think you've copied a lot of notes, you really haven't. This is a unit that has a lot of information. All right. So I'll tell you the joke. So there's a student. It was, I believe, my first year teaching Regents class. Just was so frustrating because we were taking a lot of notes and said something like, "My hand hurts, my fingers hurt. Like, Mr. Panio, you're killing us here." And then one of my favorite movies growing up was a movie called Happy Gilmore, which was, about a hockey player turned golfer with Adam Sandler. I'm not sure if you guys ever seen it, but there's a funny scene in it where basically there's this kind of corrupt guy working in a nursing home, making his people, you watched it last weekend, making his people in the nursing home make quilts and just working them to death, basically. And one of them makes a comment very similar to my students made. So I showed them this video and they all laughed. So I'm going to share it with you guys. It's stupid, but take a little break for a second.
My fingers hurt.
What's that?
My fingers hurt.
Oh, well, now your back's gonna hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. Anybody else's fingers hurt? I didn't think so.
My fingers hurt.
Yeah, so obviously I'm not going to give you guys hard labor if you guys complain, but just understand that I'm aware that there's a lot of notes and I understand it can be annoying to copy this all down, but I was a little bit more short with my student back when I was first teaching that class. Like, you're sitting in a classroom, like in the back of the room, copying notes. Life ain't too bad. Life ain't too bad for you. And they were complaining because their hand hurts and their fingers hurt. I'm like, you're in 8th grade. Stop being such a baby. But then I thought of this scene and I was like, this is why I guess I got so angry with the comment. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I would rather copy notes than do manual labor too. So I don't know. I show that scene because I think it's pretty funny. Don't copy this down. So there'll be a lot of actually slides here that you're not copying down. So please listen. Okay, so again, you don't need to copy this. During the second half of the industrialization and growth of cities, society tries to improve the problems created from the growth of cities and tries to reform. This is the big word. Okay, just throw that word somewhere. Okay, this is your, you have 2 secret coded words today, one for lesson 1, one for lesson 2. This is the first one, reform. This is your secret coded word that you have to add into the top. Please write the word down. Reform is a word that means change. It's a huge thematic essay topic, which I guess I should just mention. But basically, everything in the progressive era is change. How do we change American society to be for the better? So reform is your secret coded word. That's your first one of the day. Okay? But I want to set up this problem. It's a little bit of a weird one to start with, and yes, a little bit disgusting. But I think we get a good sense of how dirty our cities actually were. Okay, because you may think and look outside your window and be like, oh, you know, I don't like the pollution. I don't like the way it looks. It's very dirty. Trust me, you have no idea of what it used to be in the Bronx and used to be like in Chicago and New York City. So let's read through this. Nothing to copy down until you see red. From the 1600s until 1912, the year motor cars first outnumbered the carriages on New York streets, horses provided the energy that fueled the city. Okay? In 1880, the cities of New York and Brooklyn, just these two boroughs, were home to 160,000 horses, or about for one every 11 people. What happens when so many large animals are crowded into dense city streets? Now I'm looking outside my window right now. I don't live in a city, but I see a bunch of cars out in my parking lot. Okay? Back in history, though, you didn't have cars until around the mid-1910s. So how did people go around the city? How did they get around? They had horses. All right? This is, you know, very straightforward conversation, but guys, horses have to use the bathroom. All right? So horses use the bathroom. They use it outside. Now, what do horses do? They poop. What's a little bit unique about horses as opposed to human beings is, number one, we are potty trained, right? Hopefully. So we're using the bathroom indoors, okay, using the toilet. We also don't produce the same amount of manure horses do. Horses produce around 22 pounds of manure per day. Each horse, 22 pounds. It is a horrible, horrible thing. So just doing some simple math here, okay? We have 160,000 horses times 22 pounds of poop. That means per day you're getting 3.5 million pounds of horse poop on the streets of New York City. Okay? Very, very disgusting stuff. Okay? This is a photo. Okay? Now, you see signs all over New York City to, you know, go clean up your dog poop. Okay, otherwise it's a fine. No fines back then. Horses just use the bathroom. Okay, they would do it anywhere. Could be on the sidewalk, could be on the street. What did they do? All they did was just shovel it to the side of the street. Now, yes, that is Aura. This is horse poop that a wagon got stuck in. Okay, as disgusting as this is, and it is, we actually need to move past the disgustingness of it for a second. You want to know why? Because what is the real harm with poop being everywhere? What is the real harm in it? Why do you need to clean up after a dog when they use the bathroom? It's not because it's necessarily disgusting. It is. Anisi is correct. This promotes disease. When there is a lot of poop around, okay, there is a better chance that the people around will also get sick. All right, so not only are you going through the disgustingness of living through the city, you get a lot of people sick. Okay, and then we have different insects and disease that comes through in the particular area, and that leads to a lot of problems. Now, when you get sick back in American history, okay, in the 1800s, 1900s, there was a much better chance you died because we didn't have the same type of medicine. All right, so getting sick was, you know, a lot bigger of a problem. Okay, so this is what you need to copy down. Throughout this unit, you're going to get this very same setup that you get. Okay, on the left and the right, there's going to be two things. On the left is always going to be the problem. This is for this unit. On the left is going to be the problem. On the right is the solution. So you can take a minute and copy this down, and we're going to use some of the vocabulary words now. Cities were filthy and had garbage everywhere. So it just goes beyond the horse poop. Trust me. I know it's a disgusting one to start with, but I love starting with this one because it really gives you a sense of how much change and reform was needed throughout American society. Okay? Especially in the cities. Cities were extremely filthy. They had garbage everywhere. So what do we need to do? So There was this muckraker that exposed the problem. His name is George Waring. This is him on the bottom left. Now, I'm not going to bet my life on this, but I'm 95% sure that Waring Avenue, which is located close to PS 89, named after him. I haven't gotten official confirmation, but from my research, I believe that to be true. Okay, Waring Avenue was named after him. He is a very famous muckraker. He exposed the problem, number one, of all the filth and garbage in the cities. However, he went further than that. He created the first ever sanitation and sewage systems in the cities. Okay, so you have garbage men and garbage women that come around. You have street sweepers that come around. They are following George Waring's lead from American history. Okay, because he created these two systems. Okay, and we're going to look at the serious change that he made. Now, we take for granted this. Okay, I am responsible in my household to take out the garbage. Okay, I have to do it. I take the garbage from my garbage cans. We take it outside of my house and we bring it to our garbage bins that are located outside. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with the process because I'm sure many of you guys have had to do it yourselves living at your home. We take for granted that when we take that garbage out of our house, there is a person or a group responsible for taking that garbage and taking it out of our area. But in 1890, that wasn't the case. Do you know what people did when they had garbage in their homes? Anyone want to take a guess? I'll leave that for the chat. What do you do when you had the garbage back then? Burned it? Yeah, you could. That wasn't what they did, though, for the most part, because the smells would be horrible. Flush it? Yeah, there's not really much indoor plumbing unless you lived in a very wealthy neighborhood. So you couldn't do that. Good try. Make a sack of garbage? Yeah, kind of. Throw it in the horse poop. Well, Milagros is on the right track. You guys are good kids. You're nice kids. Feed it to their horse? No. They didn't feed it to the horse. They threw it out their window. Okay, that's it. They just threw it out their window. So you not only had the horse poop everywhere, you had garbage literally thrown out of people's windows. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So this was George Waring and the group that he hired. He called them White Wings. I don't really know why they wore white. It seems like a horrible color to wear if you're a garbage person. But these people literally went around and swept the streets. Now, when I park at PS 89, every Wednesday and Friday, there's something known as alternate side parking. The reason I can't park on a certain side of the street is you should know that there are street sweepers that come around and make sure the streets are clean. Okay? Those street sweepers make sure your streets are clean. Now, those street sweepers in 2021 are done by vehicle. But back in history, they used to literally get brooms and sweep up the streets. All right? They are cleaning. Okay? They have cleaning days. All right? Look at the difference two pictures make. This is a picture 2 months before George Waring and his crew got done with the streets. Same area, 2 months apart, big difference. Okay, they cleaned up all of the streets in New York City. That was their job. All right, because everyone was sick and tired of living through this filth and garbage. You'll see when we get to the review video how disgusting this really was. Trust me. It looks like you could breathe in the color on the right. I agree. Here's a great example. This isn't horse poop here on the left. This is garbage thrown from these apartment buildings. Look at how it's just stacked up. Okay, you don't see garbage bags. You see literally just garbage. All right? And a difference of a month or two, you have swept of the streets. It's a lot cleaner. It's a lot cleanlier. Same picture. You even see the same lamp here, right? Same picture, just a couple of months apart. Okay? So you have a good sense at this point, okay, just a little bit of an example of what progressive era was. And this was legally allowed. Yeah, there was no place for the garbage. Okay, there were no laws put in place to pollution or littering. There was no such thing back then. Correct, Milagros, there is an area where the garbage is going to go. Making sure an area is clean and making sure it's cleanly is an extremely important process that we take granted for. The next time you guys go out and walk, look how many garbage cans are around. Okay, look how clean the areas are comparatively. Even if it's not 100% clean, there is people that are responsible for making sure that it's clean. Yeah, the sidewalks aren't extremely crowded, but trust me, you will see the slums of New York later how crowded they get. Okay, so this is problem one. We're probably going to look at 10 problems over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. So this is just the first problem. Okay, we're going into problem number two. Okay, problem number two is centered around monopolies. Now, we already know what a monopoly is, but we want to kind of go and understand how we got rid of monopolies and why they don't really exist in 2021. Doesn't mean you can't have a very big company, but it is a good opportunity here. So here is the next slide you're copying. This is something you will learn about in science, actually, believe it or not. All right, but take a minute, copy this down, and we'll go over it. This is a new problem. No, not even the gray, just the red. Okay, so originally, we should know this already. The government allowed monopolies because they did not want to get involved in the country's economy. They wanted to be more laissez-faire. And they also believed this. So this is part two of why monopolies were allowed to exist, even though we know the problems that came with them. And if you don't remember monopolies, please, just a friendly reminder, these are the groups of people that own all of a certain product, so they can make the price of the product whatever they want. They could sell it for whatever quality, and they get a majority of the profits, where the people who buy it are kind of screwed. We talked about the pencil, right? If Mr. Panio owns all the pencils, I can make the price of this pencil $25 because no one else is selling it. What promotes good price and good quality of product is competition, okay, which sometimes didn't happen. So let's first take a look at this term social Darwinism. I have seen it come up on the Regents once or twice in the last 5 years. It was a topic my first year teaching. I did not teach. It came up on the Regents. Most of the students did fine because they learned about it in science in like April or May. But it is a social studies term that we need to be somewhat familiar about. Okay, so let me first go over what Darwinism is, social Darwinism. There was a famous, I guess I'd call him a scientist, Charles Darwin. He came up with the idea of survival of the fittest. Okay, he had an island called, I believe, Galapagos Island. He basically threw a bunch of different animals on this island and just observed their behavior. And what he observed was the animals that survived were the strongest animals, the ones that were the biggest predators, the ones that were the strongest. And it came to this idea that if you put a group of people or a group of animals in a society, the strongest will survive and the strongest will do the best. So America at this time had a very similar outlook. If you leave everyone alone, the strongest and best people in American society will do the best. Okay, so it's this term of survival of the fittest. Okay, so let me explain how this is all related. In a capitalist society, which we are in, okay, and I told you, I'll tell you my bias, I'm a huge fan of capitalism. I think comparatively to some of the other economic systems, it is the best. All right, but there are some problems with it, so I need to acknowledge some certain problems with it. Many people are given the chance to make a lot of money. Pretty much no matter who you are, no matter what your race or your gender in 2021, you can make a ton of money. Okay? The ones that do it often benefit, so the ones that make the most money are the ones that benefit the most from the government not getting involved. If the government gets involved and starts limiting the amount of things you can do to make money, that's going to mean you make less money. So the people that, do sometimes the best in American society in terms of making money are the ones where the government doesn't really get involved. So the government said if we don't get involved and we allow the strongest to survive, sort of thing, those people are going to make a ton of money, and that's exactly what happened with the monopolies. Okay, and I have this kind of photo here where like the person at the top in a capitalist society is making the most money, but it's a lot of people working under them that make them the most money. So it's not too many people can do this. So since the government wasn't so involved, since the government kind of believed that we should, let people, the survival of the fittest mentality, kind of go through this, we should not get involved and let these people succeed as much as possible. All right. I'll give you a quick example. We'll go into this a lot more. But there were people. Is it like a pyramid scheme? No, it's not like a pyramid scheme. I know it kind of looks like it, but no, that's not kind of what I'm getting at. I want to give you this example. There were students over the weekend that on the midterm got 99s and 98s on the midterm. Okay? Awesome. So proud of you guys. I'm proud of you guys if you tried hard. But people that got 99, what are MLMs?
Okay, so basically MLMs are multi-leveling marketing. Basically, is where one person recruits a lot of people to sell their product, and then that person recruits people under them.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like that.
I see. So MLMs and pyramid schemes are very similar. So yeah, I guess I could explain this really quick. So a pyramid scheme is basically someone has the idea of a product at the very top, and then basically they have people underneath them sell them that product, and then those people are the ones that are funding the person at the top. But a pyramid scheme is basically like no one's using their own money. People are using other people's money to succeed and get the product or whatever going. So that's known as a pyramid scheme. You don't really need to know that for this class. And are MLMs considered monopolies? They are not considered monopolies, but they're definitely a little bit not so good. Okay, they're a little bit not so good because you're not really having the consumer buy the product in the right way. But those are a little bit more advanced topics. What I want to get back to, though, with the grades, for the people that got 99s and 98s, I did not stop you from getting that high of a grade. Okay, I said, you know what, here's what you have to do. I am being very laissez-faire. I'm not taking points away from people just because some people got 60s and 65s. The people that got 99s and 98s on the midterm get to keep their grade. But what if I started putting on regulations on you guys, and I said, you know what? It's not so fair that people are getting 99s and 98s and then other people are getting 50s and 40s and 30s. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make it a little bit harder for you to get as much of a good grade. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to start taking away some of the study things. I'm going to stop, I'm going to start making points worth, I'm going to start making some of the questions worth more points. When I get involved and I start limiting that, that's known as regulations. The government didn't want regulations. They wanted people to make as much money as possible. But what happened was you had the monopolies get these people to become so incredibly rich. What's going on for the poor people? A lot of poor people were struggling throughout this time. All right. So the last slide, I think, of today will be this one. Let me just make sure. Yes. Okay. So you have one more slide, but let's do this Regents question first. During the late 1800s, the principles of social Darwinism were used to justify what? 4 is correct. We were okay with, having these monopoly owners to have Rockefeller and Carnegie, some of the richest human beings to ever walk the earth, because of social Darwinism and the fact that, you know what, if they're able to do really well, we should, be okay with that. Okay? Now we make it a little bit harder for people to be trillionaires and billionaires. Can you still do it? Absolutely. But we just make it a tad harder to do. All right. Take a minute and copy this down. There are a couple of things here. Okay? You need to copy down what's in blue and what's in red. Okay? I've established the problem on the left, which you are already familiar with. Captains of industry had monopolies, or what's known as trusts, on products and railroads. It made so much money while the consumer, people who bought the product, and workers struggled. So I'll give you a minute and a half to copy this down. All right, and then we will discuss what these what these 3 laws mean. Okay. Anytime you see the word monopoly and trust, you can use the two words together. You don't need to know the differences. You're not in a college economics class. You don't really need to know the differences. Anytime you see a trust or monopoly, know them as the same thing. Okay? So the first thing is we're going to look at two antitrust laws and one interstate commerce law. Okay? So basically these are three laws passed by Congress that limited trusts and monopolies from happening. How do you stop a monopoly from happening now? You need a law to prevent it. Okay? Now, this will be a little bit confusing because I'm going to use some big economic words and terms. I don't need you generally to understand all aspects of it. I just need you to understand the basis of it. All right, so first let's start with the Interstate Commerce Act. The first monopoly that gets quote unquote broken up, the first monopoly that they go after are the ones on railroads by Vanderbilt. So if you remember Cornelius Vanderbilt, he had the he had the monopoly on railroads. We want to look at the Interstate Commerce Act, which made it almost impossible for a person to own a railroad, and here's why. So it regulated, yes, you should copy blue as well, everything on this right side. So it regulated the railroad industry, making the railroad prices throughout the country fair and just. So let's go back to the idea of monopolies. You can make the price whatever you want if you're the only person to make it. But listen, people need to travel, people need to trade, okay, companies need to trade, and when they are trading, it is costing them way too much money because they're using the railroad, okay? Vanderbilt made the railroad price extremely high. Therefore, it cost people a ton more money to trade. No one in the United States, I'm not going to say no one, it was a lot less likely for people to trade in the United States under Cornelius Vanderbilt because they didn't want to pay those crazy high prices to use the railroad. And you know what happens when people aren't trading in the American country? Our economy does worse. Right? So now our government needs to get involved. If our economy is doing worse because of this railroad and we're not making as much money as a country, we need to come in and stop that. So that is the first thing that kind of gets broken up. And basically it says if you owned a railroad, you cannot have a monopoly on it. You had to have fair competition. So Vanderbilt was pretty much forced by the US government, okay, from getting rid of the railroad. Now, this is the opposite of laissez-faire. Okay, again, remember, hands off. This is the opposite of a hands-off government. This is the first time where the government really steps in and says, okay, we need to stop the railroads from being monopolized. Okay? Doesn't stop there. Let's go to the first ever antitrust law that was passed. Now, there are two you need to know, about 24 years apart. The first one is known as the Sherman Antitrust Act. Okay? The Sherman Antitrust Act made it almost impossible for a person to have a monopoly on a product. What it basically did was it forced other companies to make the same product and enforced competition. Okay, it made sure that other companies were able to make a product. So we had, let's say, Carnegie Steel Company. Well, they wanted to make sure that other companies were making steel as well. So the government would not allow Andrew Carnegie from buying out certain businesses. Okay, so other companies can create steel and other companies can sell the same product. Okay, this is the Sherman Antitrust Act. The bigger one you'll see on the Regents, though, is the Clayton Antitrust Act, because this pretty much now makes it impossible for someone to own a monopoly. After 1914, it is almost impossible to own a monopoly. I know there are some very big companies. Amazon's a great example. Apple's a great example. But though, you know, you don't have to buy the iPhone, right? I don't have to ship my products through Amazon. There are other ways you can do it, okay? If you're a Droid owner, you feel very strongly about that probably, right? If you own an Android or if you own another type of phone, guess what? You're not an Apple iPhone owner, therefore you're not following the big companies. It's not a monopoly. Congress passed the Clayton Antitrust Act, which does a couple of things. Number one, it eliminates unfair business practices, okay, which is just a very general statement. But the big thing is it stops price fixing and price discrimination. So what that means is this. Price fixing is very simple. Let's say Mr. Panio owns the pencil. Okay, and then I forget who the people I use, but let's say Neve also owned a pencil company, and Manuela owned a pencil company, and Aaliyah owns a pencil company, and who else? Dean owns a pencil company. Goes through all the students in class. Let's say you all own pencil companies, and Mr. Panio goes to you guys, look, and I say, here, we're going to fix our price. And Milagros, yeah, we're all going to fix our price, and this is what's going to happen. Let's all make the price of our pencils $15. Right? This way, if we all make it $15, people are obviously going to have to buy our very high price. Therefore, we all get money. We all make very big money. When companies work together to fix the prices to make them all very high, that's known as price fixing. That was a little loophole a lot of monopoly owners tried to make. But ultimately, that is something you can't do now because of the Clayton Antitrust Act. Okay? So, overall, it's a good way to summarize it. Government gets more involved in the economy and passes antitrust laws. And Clayton Antitrust Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Interstate Commerce Act. We know interstate commerce means trade between states. All these were meant to come in, break up monopolies, and also help out the people that are buying their products, the consumers. All right. So to start the progressive era, we looked at how a lot of the filth and a lot of the garbage was fixed through the new sanitation systems. Okay, the new garbage systems that get put in place. Okay, cleaning up the cities. And now we also look at how monopolies were broken up because these were two huge problems that were going on throughout the time. Let me see something quick before you go. Okay, very good. So we have about 4 minutes left in class before you guys are done. I just want to remind you of a couple things. You have to take a photo of these notes along with your notes from the period 2 lesson. So no one do it yet. You have your period 2 lesson. You have 1 or 2 more slides of notes. So I would take a break, get your mind away from this for a second, and then make sure the period 2 assignment gets done. Okay? The period 2 assignment consists of looking at labor unions, okay? And then it goes into this assignment here at the bottom. All right, so as I told you, there were a lot of notes today. This shouldn't be much of a surprise because I've warned you. Yeah, you're done with notes for period 1 lesson, but you have period 2. Today's a double period Monday. All right, so it's 11:04 a.m. If you guys want to go a little bit. Yes, Liz Mel, that is the secret coded word. All right, there will be a second secret coded word for period 2. You'll hear that in the video. If you look at the video, let's see how long it is. I don't even remember. 13 minutes, not bad. Okay, 13-minute video. The assignment will take you 10-15 minutes. So you guys should be done when you have when you're done with the end of the day. All right, so it's 11:04. You guys can go a little bit early, take your lunch early, or if you just want to be a very hardworking student, you could do the other assignment as well. That is fine. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow and have a great rest of your day.